What's up, YouTube? So, there's something I've been wanting to talk about for a minute, and I just haven't, because I wanted to prepare for this. I wanted to at least write some notes, and it's just taken too long to get back to it. And the information really is impactful enough that I feel like I just need to put this stuff out instead of, sit here and write a book about it before I put out a YouTube video about it. Okay, so this is a huge issue in the world right now for men, maybe even for women too. We live in a world dominated by, let's just call it feminine forces. And I don't mean that in a way of like, let's attack women or let's take the world back over for men or anything like that, or just, men don't have enough testosterone in their body. That's not what I'm talking about. That is low level thinking. That's low frequency energy. That stuff that's like for normies. That's the kind of stuff that they're going to think about. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is worldview stuff. This is like, okay, let me just give an example and we'll dive deeper. So, if you're a guy, a man, a boy, a young man, or whatever, and you're going out into this world, you're going to judge yourself effectively by female standards. Here's a really big one that a lot of you miss out on. Okay, a lot of dudes get that girls are going out and having numerous sexual partners. And from a man's perspective, you think of that as success. Because if you know a friend of yours that's a guy and he's going out and having multiple sexual partners, you're just like, high five, man, you're the man. Tell me how you do it. It's kind of guys that sell courses doing this. We want to find out so much that we're willing to pay $1,200 to some random dude to figure out how we can do it, right? So in our brains, that kind of guy that can go out and have multiple sexual partners whenever he wants is the man. And when you see women doing this, you think that, oh, well, they're out there living their best life. They're out there winning. They're out there throwing it up. And they're doing this in all of our faces. And, in spite of us, in some cases, we feel like that's a whole nother point I don't want to divert, so I'll focus here. That's not the case, my guy. A woman's version of success is not our version of success. A woman going out and having multiple sexual partners is not success. A woman being able to seal the deal on a quality relationship with a quality man that can provide her quality is success. A woman being able to get a good guy that is a good provider that can provide to her a quality life, whatever that might be for the culture at hand for that particular time period. But the fact of the matter is there's a set of standards that it's very obvious to them, meaning women in general and men as well, to the culture in general of what it really means to be successful as a woman. Now, let me describe that. For the sake of simplicity, success for a woman looks like being a stay-at-home mom is a luxury. Being a woman that has her bills paid for, her husband will buy her whatever new car she wants, whenever she wants. She doesn't have to go out and work. She has numerous kids who are all successful and were raised right. She's in touch with her kids and her grandkids. She's a matriarch. She's living a fruitful life. She's lived the fullest extent of what it means to totally explore the capacity within women to nest and everything that's involved with where women become a sort of a glue of society, right? That's in a lot of ways, and I'm boiling it down very simply so that we can move on. But my point is that in the same way that a lot of men are failures in going out and sleeping with a lot of women, if you want to call that success, in the same way that guys are just, kind of shut-ins and they don't really talk to women anymore. They don't really meet women anymore. The mental health issues with both sexes are up. There's things that unify us, that we are both failures in, the metrics that show that both men and women are failures in. But what the metrics are not showing is that, some of this stuff is comparing apples to oranges, is what I'm trying to get at. And so guys often get stuck at, well, they're able to do all these sorts of things, and that means failure for us, and success for them, but it doesn't. They're failures too. It just looks different. A woman going out and, sleeping with numerous men and being unable to, be a good partner for an effective relationship, she's a failure. Like, don't get it messed up. She's not running around from dude to dude because that's what she wants to do. She doesn't have the ability to maintain a positive relationship that's about anything. She doesn't have the ability to make a man happy. She's not mature enough to cooperate with someone and be successful in that. She doesn't have the attributes that it takes to hold a family together. She's not, any good. She's running around in the streets. Like, imagine that. Like, take, whatever woman that you know of that is what we're explaining, maybe an old-fashioned woman, maybe it's your mom or someone that that does have, some of these things that we're talking about here, that is successful in these endeavors that we're talking about here. Like, imagine that woman running around in the streets, having sex with numerous different men and getting tattoos and taking trips to, Miami or overseas to wherever, doing God knows what. Like, imagine them going and doing that. Imagine a lady like a well-mannered, mature, level-headed, woman that can provide value to the man that she's with, that understands how to kind of care for not just the man, but the people in her life, her kids, in general, or even if you have uncles over, they know how to care for everyone in general, because that's a motherly sort of matriarchal sort of attribute. Imagine a woman like that calling herself a bad bitch. Imagine a woman like that calling herself a queen and acting like, making an ass out of themselves. You know what I'm saying? It's most definitely not success. It's a cry for help at best. I'm gonna have to break this one down into a couple of parts, so you're gonna have to watch the next video that I put out. So in the same way that we have this world where, and often men are creating effectively, the title of the video, false equivalents of, looking at their counterparts and thinking that they're being outpaced in success. I mean, you see it in academia. Hey man, they're more educated than ever. They're all graduating from college. Men aren't going into college. Dog, a lot of them are going to college for degrees that are useless. How many of those are like, a major that doesn't make any money, that doesn't do anything? If I didn't see any guys, I mean, not any, but very, very few guys when I was in college. There were very few guys that were in college, for something that we all knew was a waste of time. Most of them were like engineering and statistics and finances and business, and they were about trying to get somewhere in their career. There were many women there. There were many girls there that were theater majors or whatever else that were complete and total waste of time. That's not all of them, but I'm saying, like, it's a skewed statistic. To make a long story short, in various different ways, if you look out into the world, you're going to see success and normal and different things like that defined by a feminine logic. When you're in school, like, you say good behavior, it's like that's not necessarily good behavior as much as it is a compliant behavior. And compliant doesn't necessarily mean good. Sometimes being anti-compliant is what's absolutely necessary. We wouldn't have America that we have today if it weren't for people that, were against being totally compliant to stuff, right? And even in the workforce, you see now, like, you think that this is all just a coincidence, oh, well, we don't have the jobs where, it's manual labor and it's, any coal mining or whatever it is, manufacturing jobs anymore. And now all of a sudden you see a bunch of women entering the workforce. Now all of a sudden you see the workforce comprised of more women than before. Well, yeah, because the workforce is now more friendly to women. If it were manual labor jobs that were destroying your back, they would have been more than willing to sit in the house and not claim independent woman or whatever it is they're on. But now that most of the jobs are, in America are surrounded around the service industry and working, behind a desk and stuff like that, then all of a sudden you've got a job environment that's more so catered to their abilities. It's not like there was anything, any grand revolution that happened. They just weren't able to participate. But before, the jobs that were out there weren't really built for them. And now they are. Now the kind of jobs that are offered are more so centered around, not requiring masculine qualities. So now you can be a woman and work, and you can be a feminine man and keep up with with masculine men, and there's a spot for you to work here. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's not about any sort of grand revolution that women pushed forward and created in the workforce. If anything, it's a government. I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's effectively a government psyop that was, the whole purpose behind it being to effectively double their workforce. I mean, if we can eliminate, the marriages, and we can have, if we can eliminate the marriages, then we can have them buying twice as many houses. We can have them buying twice as many cars. We can have them buying twice as much of everything because they now no longer live under the same roof. We can have them paying twice as much for everything, and we can even get twice as many slaves because, instead of sharing the income, having a household income, that now they're all, split up and separated. So they get twice as many slaves, and all of our dollars are worth half as much. Like it's simple mathematics. If there's twice as many people doing the same job, then they can pay you half as much. If there's twice as many people putting twice as many dollars into the circulating amount of money in the economy, then it's all worth half as much. So I think you more or less get the point. Again, YouTube doesn't like long form content, and I know you guys kind of want to get your quick hit and move on. So I'm going to end the video here. I'm going to put out more on this. This is going to have to go on and on. I don't like to talk about these sort of things about, making my YouTube channel specifically about women or anything. But I think this is a social dynamic a lot of guys are failing to understand. And it's going about giving guys like really low self-esteem. Like, you are not a failure. You're just measuring yourself by erroneous standards. Measure yourself by masculine standards. Are you strong? Are you using sound logic? Are you going about strategizing in this world in a way that's going to lead to you being successful? And whatever else that means to you. But most importantly, don't go about measuring yourself by other people's standards. Because a lot of people are going to go about this life, and they're going to, especially as they get older, you have to be wary of older people giving you advice, because you'll need to take their advice with a grain of salt, because you got to understand they've invested their time into whatever it is they've done with their life. And so they're going to preach and holler about how their path in life is the best, because if they believe anything else, then they have to also accept that they wasted their time and it's something they can never get back. So they're always going to say to do what they did and do it the way that they did it, even though they know they bumped their head 100 times getting to where they are and made a bunch of mistakes. And even their mistakes is going to make their opinions bias. It's going to make their advice bias, because they might have went and invested a bunch of money in a company and lost everything. And so now they're going to tell you don't invest, and that's not right, right? You've got to take, their advice with a grain of salt in that regard. And similarly, so what I'm getting at is, a person that has been successful in the movie industry, they'll tell you, hey, you should get into the Hollywood business. You should do what I did, because that's how they saw success. But that's not necessarily how you're going to see success. You need to play to your strengths. You need to find out what is going to make you win, because it's not about being, LeBron James. It's not about being Kobe Bryant or Patrick Mahomes or Ryan Gosling, or I don't know why I'm naming these people specifically. I'm just trying to think of what other people might think of as success. It's not about measuring up to those people. It's about being the best you, and you're definitely not going to be the best you, let alone be a successful man, if you're judging yourself by feminine standards in a feminine world. Refocus your energy. Stop being manipulated by things that are not logical. Stop downloading the information that makes no sense. Get refocused. Tap into your powers. Play into your strengths. Become the best you. And I'll see you guys next time for part 2. I'm going to go ahead and record it. I don't know how long it's going to take to come out. Anyway, here's the outro.